John. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing very well, thank you. Happy middle of summer.
Thank you. You too. I wasn't sure if I was doing this right. This is my first time setting it up.
No, totally. Live on air is a little tricksy, right? Because you set it up and it goes into Google Plus, then you go, so what happens? Where do I push start?
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm like, who am I going to be looking at?
And what's funny is like it'll tell you who's watching, and like nobody's ever watching, right? Like you could send out links to your friends, like, "Hey, check us out, we're live," and it's nothing, you know. I used to do when I was the director of instructional technology for the Natomas Unified School District in Sacramento. I did every Friday live broadcast on live on air. And I'd interview a different teacher each week from around the district. So I'd get people to jump on. And people were like, what is this? Is this live? Are you guys really on there? It was hilarious. It was hilarious.
Yeah, I learned something new every day, that's for sure.
Right. And the whole thing archives immediately to YouTube. So it's super slick.
Awesome. Perfect.
Cool.
Well, I don't want to take too much of your time. So we'll go ahead and get this started if you're okay with that.
Yeah, fantastic.
Okay, so for my first question, John, can you tell me about your education background and your experience with educational technology?
Sure. Not going back too far, right? I started off as a school teacher about 20 years ago. I was a high school drama teacher. I did some English 11, some English 9. I did I built a little film studio. Some kids and I built a film production studio, taught some short film. It was pretty much in the arts, but I had a flair for the technology piece. And so then, when I became a vice principal, totally long story and different story, but I became a vice principal, then I became the principal. And at that point, we had a closed circuit TV system in our school. So we started producing like daily video broadcasts, and then we're throwing them up on YouTube. And this was like in 2007, I guess. So like not a lot of people were rocking YouTube at the time. So we were throwing out a lot of content. We were kind of out there. So I wanted to give every kid on campus email, but we couldn't get it worked out with the district. And it was kind of funky. So a friend of mine literally said like, hey man, there's this new thing called Gmail. We can get this Google Apps for Education thing going. And I'm like, what's a Google Apps for Education? Like nobody, it was like 2007, 2000, nobody knew. So we just started giving kids email and rocking Google Docs. And I said, well, gosh, this would be rocking for like staff meetings and staff agendas. And I built this whole collaboration infrastructure so teachers could collaborate. And again, like it's 2008. Nobody's really rocking Twitter. Like nobody's really talking about Google Apps for Education. I think the Google Teacher Academy had been like 2 or 3 cycles, maybe there was like 150 or 200 people had been through Google Teacher Academy things. It was pretty new. And so a friend of mine said, hey man, you should apply for the Google Teacher Academy. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but let's do it. So I made this little video, and I applied for the Google Teacher Academy. And when I got accepted, I went out there in the summer of 13, I guess. It was only 3 years ago. And I flew out to Chicago, and I got in a room with 50 of the uber smartest people I've ever met. Like I was the dumbest person for sure out of 50 people in the Google Teacher Academy. And these people were like, they were connected. And they were all on Twitter, and they were all on, everything. I thought, oh, there's something going on here that I didn't even realize. Like, I was really one of the only administrators in the room. I think there was probably 50 people accepted the academy that year. And I think maybe 4 of us were administrators, and everybody else was teachers. So it was wild. I was like, hey, man, this industry is changing. This room's filled with uber smart people who are connecting via Twitter and Twitter chats. And I'm like, okay, I'm in. So really within, that year, I got promoted on my principal job where I'd been at this high school for like 15 years. I had the greatest gig, but I got asked to be the director of instructional technology and come to the district office and roll out some technology. And I said, hey, look, I think Chromebooks are going to get a little traction here in the next couple of years. And at the time, the cabinet was like, what's a Chromebook? I was like, hey, trust me, I think this is gonna happen. And so our district they're like, okay, John, like our money's on you. And they totally gambled, and we rolled out like 3,000 Chromebooks in it was like a 6-week deal. Like, you want to roll some Chromebooks? Let's do it. and we just went out there and we developed from the district office level, we developed this kind of coaching model where we got teachers to come after school and just volunteer to figure out. We call it like the band tour. The band's coming to your school. We just traveled around from school to school and started doing all these ed tech implementation kind of after school fun trainings. And, at the time, I guess I had never really presented that much. And Joe Wood, who's like an uber genius and like the nicest guy in America, I wish he was watching, but nobody's watching, so let's be honest, right? Joe was like, hey man, do you want to be on the CapQ board? And I'm like, oh, I skateboard. Is that the same thing? Like, no, it's like a board of directors. And I was like, yeah, I'm in. So I got recruited to be on the CapQ board. And so now I'm like a little part of Q. And I'm like, that's cool. And, so now I'm rubbing elbows with like these people who I think are super sharp and out there really pushing technology. And I'm getting ideas from them, and they're getting ideas from me. And we're like, oh, we thought of this. And then we put on the annual CapQ Tech Fest, right, which happens in October. And I presented, like, for the first time ever, I presented in front of a public that wasn't like my own. I think it was in October of like 13 or something. And like, well, was it 14? It was 14. So it was like October 14, and I'd been presenting a lot in my district, but all of a sudden I was like, I did the CapQ Tech Fest, then I did the fall Q, then I did the national Q, then I got flown out to Chicago, and all of a sudden I looked at my little resume and I was like, oh, I've done like 20 presentations in my first year. And then in the second year, I got asked to be a Q lead learner, because apparently I present, loudly or something, right? They're like, hey, you're a good presenter. You want to be a lead learner? I was like, yeah, I'm game, man. This is a fun gig. I want to do this. So Daniel Forst, who's the one of the Q lead directors, she says, hey, you want to be a lead learner? We'll take you to other districts, and you can do Q rock stars. And I said, yeah, man, I'm in. So I started doing Q rock stars. I've presented like 20 districts, and I said to Danielle, I said, I'd really like to start keynoting. I think that would be cool. And so this last year, I've done 6 or 7 keynotes for all these different districts. And it's been like, anyway, I guess that's more about me and not about the ed tech part. But that's been my trajectory. Is I went from going, hey, I'd like to give kids email to like now people going, hey, could you help us implement one-to-one and all these things? I'm like, sure, I got it on lock now. And the school that I'm at now, I left the district office and I became the executive director of Westlake Charter School with 2 campuses, an elementary and a middle school. And our team has taken them one-to-one Chromebooks from 2nd grade through 8th grade. And I thought I was pretty innovative. Like, I'm a snail in this race. Our teachers are the most innovative, imaginative, progressive thinkers. They are trying crazy stuff with Chromebooks. We got kindergartners using Google Drawings. It's like mind-blowing what I'm seeing. And so I'm on a great ride right now. I'm like, this is fun.
So it's crazy how much you established in just a certain amount of time, 2007. It's just crazy what the time has changed, and you just have to get on the technology train, or you're gonna be left behind. That's for sure.
Yeah, I've got a strong opinion about that for sure. Oh, you froze. Maybe it's my Wi-Fi.
So how do you, and then I'm going to add this one to it, how do you deal with teachers that are skeptical about it?
Okay, so my Wi-Fi glitched just a bit there, so I think let me see if I got the whole question. Did you just ask about skeptical teachers, or was there a first part that I missed?
I put 2 questions in one. What is your vision for integration in technology? And then what do you do with skeptical teachers if they are skeptical about that integration?
Sure. So my vision for ed tech is maybe twofold, and it is this. Number one, I think that technology, I love it. I'm a nerd, right? I dig it. But they're just tools. Tools don't teach kids. Teachers teach kids. Tools are great for getting to know things about kids. We used to use tools like pencils and scan to get to know who was proficient in what area, and it took a long time, but Scantrons were faster than the old grading methodologies. Well, now these new tools are just tools, and they're way better than Scantrons. So my vision is that we don't start to change our instructional pedagogy because of tools. I mean, that sounds dumb, right? Like, we're not going to change the construction of a home because we changed from a hammer to a nail gun. We're gonna change our blueprint for learning based on good research and educational pedagogy that I still think, my strong belief is, starts with relationships. So tool or not, that pedagogy shouldn't change. Now, so first of all, technology is simply tools, and tools don't teach kids. Teachers teach kids. But these tools can be used incredibly effectively to personalized education. I think that's my number one push for technology usage, is that it shouldn't be simply a blanket replacement for the pencil and paper, so that instead of writing in a spiral notebook, we just type. I get that's where we start on the SAMR model, and I'll talk about that next, but really it's about personalizing education and being able to not only differentiate, but individualize, not only for targeting, based on using analytic tools like assessment tools, but also for output. Hey, if you'd rather do a Google drawing that hyperlinks certain parts of the drawing to research, you just go ahead and do that. I'm gonna write an essay with embedded hyperlinks that go to research, and she's gonna make a video, and inside the video, she's gonna hyperlink certain research, and it not only for the assessment and personalization over here, but for the outcomes. I'd like to see personalization, because I think one mistake that I've seen made is that the tool can only be used for consumption. And I get it, when the internet was born and then we all went to Web 2.0, like the shift happened, and some people have missed the shift. The shift is, the tool is not about consumption, it's about production. So this is a production tool, not a consumption tool. And if we're producing data based on assessments, that's a production that says, hey, this kid is producing data that you as the teacher should be able to individualize based on that data. And then also, can they produce outcomes, like authentic assessment outcomes, not just multiple choice, but authentic demonstrations of learning. So that's kind of my vision for technology. And then for the second part of your question is like, well, how do you get there? Which I get it, man. Like, I'm a 20-year veteran. Like, I didn't color my beard gray. I am gray. And I've earned all of them through like hard fought battles. Like, how are we going to not just reform this industry, but transform this industry? Like, I'm tired of the one-room schoolhouse from 1912. Like, it's 2016. Let's not reform. Let's scrap it and transform. So how do you do that? Hey, some of us are slow to get on the wagon train because they feel like this is just a pendulum swing and that this will go away. And here's the deal. I'm sure somebody thought that when we went from the quill to the yellow number 2 pencil, but it stuck around. So like, this tool ain't going anywhere. So we got to start there. Now, I believe that I've had the most success with two parts of integration that help with a reluctant learner. The first part is, again, the same pedagogy as teaching, and that is the relationship model. So what I like to do is I have a very flat leadership structure in the way that I build school now. But you get ad hoc committees, and you get them flooded with invested first adopters, and you get those first adopters to find first followers, and you get those first followers to talk to the people on the fence, and all of a sudden you have a tip. I mean, don't go after your old immovable oaks first. I mean, that's just a waste of energy, right? Go after your first followers, then get your first followers to collect another group of followers, and then now you've started to tip the scale. And if that's all you do for the first year of a one-to-one initiative, by year 3, you are smoking. If you go after the old oak, the immovable oak in year 1, in year 2, you are right where you started in year 1. It is a waste of time. That's just leadership 101, but it's also tech adoption 101. Make sure you take care of the first adopter first, but your number one job in integration is to make sure the first follower gains another first follower. Like, you're not a leader until you've developed a leader who can develop a leader, right? We've seen that on Twitter. Like, it's the same deal. If you're gonna go get a tech TOSA, that ain't the end of the puzzle. That's the beginning. You say, I'm hiring you as a tech TOSA because I need you to cultivate 8 TOSAs, 1 per grade level, who are each one follower to follow them. Now you've got a 16-fold, right, growth. So, am I talking too fast, Katie?
No. I'm loving all of this advice.
Google.
So I'm the new technology coordinator at my school, and so my approach has been kind of confusing of, do you try to get everybody on the, train at once? No, like you said, you need to get the few at first, and then they'll get their few, and it's just kind of going to be like a little stepping stone.
Yeah. So I guess the kind of pedagogically or leadership structure wise, that's my initiation for dealing with a reluctant staff, because there's always going to be first adopters and fence sitters, and there's going to be people on the other side of the fence. Get to them last, they'll get caught up in it, you'll be fine. And for you, just like, not just part of this interview, but for you one-on-one, if you want to talk about some of the structures that we've recently seen be really successful, I can hook you up with some teachers who you could talk to who are like doing some integration coaching that you'd be amazed. They moved some old oaks, that they've moved over to this side of the fence, and now we've got really 90% penetration rate. It's really fascinating. What grade level are you? What school are you at? High school, middle school, elementary?
I'm kindergarten at it's a K through 8 school.
Yeah. I go give with some really nice people that you probably really get a lot out of talking to, more so than me, because they're boots on the ground. I gave them the, hey, go find the first follower, and they went out and really did the work. So I'll hook you up with some people when we're done.
Awesome.
The second part to that question then is how to roll out, right? How to create clear expectations that seem achievable and attainable for everybody. Your first followers and your early adopters are going to just go bonkers, man. Give them a cart and just get out of their way and celebrate them often. Like, wow, did you see what Mrs. Smith did on Twitter? Look at Mrs. Smith's kid. Well, that fuels Mrs. Smith, and she's like running. You know, that's the easy part, man. You just keep lighting up Mrs. Smith, and she's gone. And you send her to a cute rock star. You send her to Cap Cute. She's on fire. The middle ground people and the immovable people need, though, some real clear tangibles. Like, hey, look, we are giving you out a group of Chromebooks right now. We're not asking you to change the world, but we do have a clear set of expectations, what we call our technology continuum expectations. And really, these are just tech expectations that are taken directly from the Common Core standards. We all know that by 4th grade, a student has to be able to type an entire essay in one sitting and draw contrast between appropriate online materials and inappropriate. It's in the standards, and we built a tech continuum. I'd be glad to share it with you. You can steal ours, put your logo on it, call it yours. But year one, we said, hey, we're going to do a technology continuum for Google Docs. In kindergarten, all you need to be able to do is turn it on, log in, open a doc. Woo, you killed it, right? Very obtainable, standards-based expectations. But by 8th grade, they had to really be rocking it. That's it. It was super attainable, though, right? And then we launched the first followers and said, hey, go out and figure out what people need. We'll hold some trainings where trainings you need. We did some badging, and we're like, hey, you got a badge for doing your thing. Way to go. But the most important part of it was we said, look, we're going to use the SAMR model. Are you familiar with SAMR?
Yeah, I am.
All right, cool. So that was our deal. I mean, people, I've given the SAMR presentation 50 times if I've given it once, and it lowers the affective filter of the reluctant teacher, because you come out and you go, look, if I gave you a cart of Chromebooks right now, the truth is you would probably look at that Chromebook and look at those kids, and you'd probably say to yourself, I know those kids could do more with those devices than I could do with either. I'm freaked out and frustrated and a little offended that somebody brought this junk into my room. I'm angry. I'm going to cross my arms, right? And you go, I get it. So this is what I want you to do. You have to follow SAMR. Substitution, augmentation, modification, redefinition. And then you go through the whole SAMR pitch. You go, look, you guys, substitution not a recommendation. It is an expectation. No one in this room is allowed to take a Chromebook and jump to augmentation, modification, and redefinition to start. Hey, start with substitution. If you usually put a journal entry on the board and have them write in their spiral notebooks, all I want you to do is instead have them open up the Chromebook and substitute the doc for the pencil and paper, and don't do anything. Don't get fancy. Mm-hmm. That's it. You just mastered substitution. Now, for some of you, after 2 days of that, you'd be like, dude, I know what we can do. We can augment, modify. For some of you, it might take 2 weeks. For some of you, it might take 6 months. Some of you might come back here a year from now and be like, you know what? I'm ready to teach them the share button and have them peer edit. And if that takes a year, that's fine. You start with SAMR and you will be successful in our model and you'll be meeting our expectations. You won't get any crud from the kid next door who's rocking it and doing all kinds of Skype interviews with NASA astronauts. Like, if you're doing SAMR and starting with substitution, you're good by us. And everybody goes, I can do that. And me and you know that as soon as they make the leap into substitution, augmentation happens naturally. Modification happens over a lunch conversation. Like, they'll start to carve their own pathway through the SAMR trajectory just by getting them to use substitution. The rest of it comes easy. So make substitution like the top bar expectation. Like, man, if you hit this, we're good. You don't have to do nothing else for me ever again. And they're like, okay, I'll just substitute. And then it's the gateway drug. So sorry, I get a little excited.
No, that's awesome. This is some great information for personally and for this interview. It's awesome. Thank you.
Hey, what's the interview for?
What was that?
What's the interview for? Are you working on your master's?
Yeah, my master's.
Cool. Very cool. Very cool. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been challenging, but I love it. I definitely love it.
Cool.
So obviously you're a connected educator. I follow you on Twitter. You're very active. You post awesome resources. So how has being a connected educator helped you with your professional development or your personal growth?
Oh my gosh! I mean, I tell you,
loaded question.
That is, I think, the quintessential question for the modern educator. And I'm not sure what's happening in other industries. But I got to tell you, if you're not on Twitter right now and participating in the exchange of resources and ideas, if you're not out there, and I hate to say this to have friends who are not out there, you will be irrelevant in 5 years. I know that good instructional pedagogy is still good instructional pedagogy, and you can be a great teacher without the use of technology tools. But people don't understand it's more about the fact that there's safety in numbers. And that we all go to the lunchroom. We all went to the lunchroom in 1999 because teaching is isolating and it's terrifying and it's frustrating and it takes over your life. But then you get out there on Twitter, and instead of just having the lunchroom with those 4 other department members and 2 of them you don't really like that much, and one of them like you really would invite to your wedding, like now you're connected to thousands of people who typically share only positive news. Like, when I get on Twitter, it's very rare that I see a teacher go, man, my kids are stupid. You don't see it. So now you're in the most positive lunchroom filled with some people who are all okay with stretching their minds. I mean, they're all kind of going, hey, what do you know? What do you know? And, you know, I often do not feel qualified to contribute. You know, I'm blogging now because I feel like, hey, everybody out here is willing to stretch a little bit, right? I mean, everybody out here is like trying new things. So I thought, hey, I've been inspired. You know, I did a presentation with a guy named Adam Welcome, who's a super genius. Him and Todd Nesloni just produced this amazing book. And I was having a dinner with these guys when I was doing Q Rockstar admin. And Adam's like, hey, why aren't you blogging? And I said, I don't know, dude. I don't know what I had to add to the conversation. You know, he just, you know, and he goes, hey, if you don't produce, if nobody produces, where's the conversation? He goes, no one's grading your essay. Just write something and throw it out there. And I just went, dude, I'm in. So like, I've been blogging and contributing, and I've been getting as much out of the contributing process as I do out of the consumption process. Because on Twitter, I learn a bunch from everybody. The first-year teacher tweeting her first tweet goes, oh my gosh, I just realized this. And I'm like, oh, that's a brilliant nugget. From the 25-year administrator who's like, hey, I just figured this out. I'm like, oh, that's a nugget. But also now I'm trying to produce content. And we know from our own students' experience, it's when we ask them to produce that they become truly reflective and metacognitive and go, what does this all mean? So here I am now starting to write, and it's making me think, what does this mean? Like, I read that book and I read that book, and I started to put the two together, and even though nobody may ever read that blog post, I mean, nobody may go, wow, John Eick taught me something. John Eick taught John Eick something. Because I took the time to write it down, and I did it through the lens of like, hey, some pretty smart people might see this. I mean, Kristen's getting a master's degree. What if she reads this thing? I better use proper punctuation. So like, it's being a connected educator, and I don't know that I'm the most connected educator, but like being a connected educator, in my opinion, is maybe like the pinnacle of where our industry's been heading through the entire standards movement. I mean, in '99, we're like, okay, let's come up with common standards. So New York and California kind of graduated at the same level. We've got some standards. Now it's more than standards. In fact, I feel like now we can finally get rid of the standards. Why? Because finally the educators are connected. Because the teacher in New York and the teacher in California are sharing ideas. Get the standards out of the way and the stupid, rigidity of the standards out of the way, and let the teachers really finally collaborate the way we've always wanted them to. I mean, I could go on all day, right? What are the affects of being connected? I've made friends. And you know what?
It's so inspiring that you're saying that, because the class is all about creating a blog. So we started our own platform, and then I'm thinking it's a lot of work, more work than I actually thought it was going to be. So I'm thinking after the class is done, I'm probably not going to blog as much. I'm just going to keep being the consumer and stuff. Well, now that you're saying that,
Well, man, if you don't contribute, if none of us contribute, what is there to read? And I was, I'm just a fella. I mean, I'm nobody. I'm a little intimidated by putting my blog out there in front of people. But you know what? I'm at this point now. I let my wife read it first, right? So my wife's really smart. So I let my wife read it. And if she gives it the green light, I just throw it out there, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm gonna keep it up, because I think we should all be contributing to the conversation. Stephen Johnson wrote a great book about where good ideas come from, and it comes from nobody has a single good idea by themselves. I bring half a good idea, you bring half a good idea. When we come together, a good idea is born. So I think I'm gonna throw my half good idea on the internet and see if it helps anybody else come up with a good one.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you doing this internet insight, which in just the half hour that we've been talking. And I love your energy. And then when you and Christina Mattis were together at the Q conference for Google Classroom, that was awesome. So I'm going again this year. So I'm going to be looking for you guys. If you're together again or separate, I'll try to find you, but we'll try to stay connected. And then, and I really appreciate you doing this interview, though. Thank you for all your information. Bye.
Totally my pleasure. Yeah, my pleasure. And honestly, if you're stepping into a new part of your career, if you're jumping in as an ed tech coordinator or a TOSA, and you want to connect with some people, I mean, what we just talked about, that connectedness piece is legit, right? That's the big deal. So I don't know if you're following the hashtag ConnectedTL.
Okay, got it. I'm on it.
So hashtag ConnectedTL is run by Roland Eick and I think Kate Tolnai. And then there's hashtag TOSA chat, TOSA chat. Both of those hashtags are super legit to jump into. Also, I don't know if you do the Cal Ed chat, CAED chat. So it's a hashtag. They chat every Sunday night at 8. Anyway, the point is, jump on a Twitter, follow those 3 hashtags, find out who's tweeting from those hashtags, follow those people and reach out to them. And then reach out to me on direct message, and I will give me your email address, and I'll email a couple of real superstars who do some great stuff, and just say, hey, you guys got to connect, and you guys can take it from there.
Awesome. I've learned so much in just this 30 minutes, so I can just imagine reaching out to even more people.
Cool. I'll keep connecting, man. Connecting. That's good stuff. So thanks for the honor of interviewing me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon, John.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.